So Robert, there's a bunch of different discharge characterizations you can get when you get out of the military. And some of them are good and some of them are not so good. What happens to a soldier, say, who starts training but only trains for like 3 months and they get put out of the military? What type of characterization discharge do they get?
So the individuals that get kicked out without serving a certain period of time, they would get what's called an uncharacterized discharge.
What's an uncharacterized discharge?
So it doesn't really mean they were honorable. Doesn't mean they were, they didn't commit any sort of offense to get out. They weren't in the military long enough to have a determination on what their discharge should be.
So let's say someone does serve 6 months and now they qualify for another type of discharge. What's the best discharge they can get?
Of course, the best discharge they can get is an honorable. When at the time as a service member, you hear about the honorable discharge, you don't really know what the big picture is of that. You get out of the military, if you're a 100% disabled veteran, even if you're not a 100% disabled veteran, if you're a certain percentage disabled veteran, you have to have an honorable discharge in order to get that. So it opens the door to a lot of different things. You keep your GI Bill if you offered to get in that program. So a lot of great advantages for that program.
So I suppose the honorable discharge entitles you to every benefit from your military service.
That's correct.
Can you get a discharge that's still under honorable conditions but not a fully honorable discharge?
You could get a general discharge. In a general discharge, you lose a lot of your benefits because you didn't get the honorable discharge. And some employers may want to know about that discharge. You may have to explain that to your employer.
Right, and so I guess the two big things that you don't get with a general discharge are your educational benefits and then civil service benefits, which means the time you spent in the military doesn't transfer into the civil service system. But it's still an honorable discharge.
That's correct. And what you don't realize with that general discharge and those things you talked about with civil service and things of that nature is that you may not think right now that you want to work for the government again, but eventually you may want to be back with the government. And if I'm applying for a government job and I have an honorable discharge, I'm going to get certain points, but it'll put me to the top of the list. Some states have that same requirement. But if you have a general discharge, you don't get those points. So you're back with the pool with everybody else that is applying for that job.
All right. I guess the most damaging discharge you can get administratively is an other than honorable discharge. And what is an other than honorable discharge?
So it's sort of like, as I described, other than honorable. So you lose a lot of the benefits that you had before.
With an other than honorable discharge, does that sometimes prevent you from getting jobs?
Yes, actually it can. You have to disclose that information. You may have some employers, for example, when I applied for a job, I had to tell them I have an honorable discharge, which is great. But that employer thought that because I had certain medals, I had done certain things that made me look better. But if you're other than honorable, they're going to say that if they're in the military world, they're going to see that you didn't complete your task. So,
and an other than honorable discharge can also hinder you from getting certain professional certifications. Like if you become a lawyer, you have to disclose that. If you're a doctor, you have to disclose that. If you get certifications like a pilot's license or some of these other professional certifications, you have to disclose that. It may be a disqualifying factor for that particular certification. Now, those are the administrative discharges. There's also punitive discharges, aren't there?
There are punitive discharges.
What is a punitive discharge?
So there are two punitive discharges as it relates to the court-martial side. There is a bad conduct discharge and there is a dishonorable discharge.
Okay, and so a bad conduct discharge is something that really can interfere with your life. You usually get a conviction and then you're followed with a bad conduct discharge. And this really forecloses almost all of your veterans' benefits. And not only that, employers really frown on that. But they don't frown on it as much as a dishonorable discharge. That's the worst discharge that you can get from the military. And that disqualifies you from every veterans benefit that exists. So if you get a dishonorable discharge, how would that affect perhaps your application to schools?
In application to a college, you would have to disclose any veteran service. You may have a school that doesn't want you to be there, and that's not discriminatory if they don't want you to be there. In law school, if you apply for law school, you would have to disclose that. Some law schools won't want you to be in law school there.
So a dishonorable discharge could prohibit you from educational advancement, professional advancement, career advancement, or even finding a job. Okay. Now, do officers get bad conduct or dishonorable discharges?
No, if they're court-martialed, officers are court-martialed, and they're commissioned officers and they're court-martialed, then they would get a dismissal.
And is the dismissal the same thing as, say, a dishonorable discharge?
Dismissal is the same as a dishonorable discharge with the same effect.
All right, so now understanding that there are many consequences to your service in terms of your discharge. If you get a discharge other than an honorable discharge, should you contact a military lawyer?
Of course you should contact a military lawyer if you get anything other than honorable, because while at the time you may not think it's significant, because if your goal is to get out of the military, or if your goal is to just, as some people might do, is just hide their head and go forward in life thinking they can fix it later, it's difficult to fix it later. You want to try to get the best result you can at the first time you're there.
Well, that's the importance of military discharges. My name is Will Helixon. I am the Warrior Advocate. This is the Law Office of Will M. Helixon. You defend the nation. We defend you.